Making your own stingers can seem like a hefty outlay initially, but once you've got the stuff, it'll save you time and money in the long run. Things you'll need to make your own stingers: something with the ability to cut wire, a pair of pliers normally does the job, a crimping tool. Now from everyday pike fishing I normally find that the smaller side of this double-sided crimping tool is absolutely fine. A ruler to help you measure everything off. If you want to keep your multiple stingers looking identical, then obviously it's a tool to have. I don't worry too much with those normally. Jig heads, corkscrews, whatever it is you want to use. I'm a fan of the 15 grams. You can see I've got loads of those. It's what I tend to use day to day. It's quite versatile and allows me to fish different depths. I just slow down the retrieve. Your wire, now obviously your wire is key. A lot of people tend to use titanium. This is just a 7-strand steel wire which is coated in nylon. I do prefer the wire that's coated in nylon, as I think it helps to protect the fish better should that wire start to perish at some point. It's not going to leave any sharp ends hanging off there. Crimps. Now with this 40-pound break and strain wire, I use 1.4mm crimps, and I cover those once they're on with some shrink tubing just to keep everything nice and tidy, and again protect the fish from any sharp corners if it does decide to roll in the net. Now there's lots of different stinger rigs that we can look at making. So for smaller lures you may have a single stinger which hangs from a smaller corkscrew head. Again, these can be rigged on top of the lure if you want to fish them weedless style. They can be doubled up and accompanied with a regular jig head to leave a free hook hanging underneath. On some of the lures you buy in the shop now will only have one treble fitted onto a hard plastic section, so a stinger can be made to extend that and improve the hookup rates when a fish strikes. The stinger I'm going to show you today is an all-round versatile stinger. It encompasses 2 hooks across the section of the body of the lure. We're going to use an 18cm Fox Pro shad. I think this is called a silver baitfish colour or something along those lines, but this is what we're going to rig up today. So the first thing you'll need to do is decide how long you want your stinger. Now as a general rule of thumb, I'd like to go for around half the size of the lure. So this lure here is actually 18cm. So we're going to look somewhere in the region of 9cm for the total length, as it will cut off about here. There you go, pop the ruler there, you'll be able to see that. Leave plenty of room for that tail to wobble unhindered by the hooks hanging beneath. The first thing you need to do is take a length of wire and you want to cut that. Make sure you don't cut it too small. You can always trim off the tag ends, but if you don't have enough to play with to start with, then your stinger's not going to come out to your desired length. So there we go, just slightly bigger than the lure body itself. So once we've got the wire cut just there, we're going to prepare some shrink tube, cut those to approximately the same size as the crimp, ever so slightly larger, as we want those to overhang the rough corners. And then we're going to start off by preparing this for our first hook. So these are Fox Armour Point hooks. We've got a size 2 and a size 4 just there, as I prefer to have a smaller hook near the tail. First thing you want to do is you want to pop on a bit of shrink tube just there, as this is going to pull down over everything, make it nice and neat. Followed up by crimp and then your hook. So this first piece just here is going to be the first treble. So we're going to bring this back out and it's going to double round a split ring again before it then goes onto the corkscrew. So give that a nice firm nip, bend the wire down, makes it easy to thread the crimp through. Just there. Pop that on there. Now this is another topic for discussion. Some people like to have this hook swing freely, others like it fixed in place. I like them to be swinging freely, but if you do like your hooks to be fixed in place on your stingers, then just push that in a little bit tighter to restrict the movement. Grab your crimps, pop that into the first groove just there, and then what you want to do with this is one really firm squeeze. Some people will turn the crimps over and give it another. However, I think this is part of the reason that people experience crimp failures, is because they've made the metal too weak in the first place. So yeah, you can see the crimps on there, and that's not going anywhere. That's not going to pull free. We'll pull down this shrink tube over there, and we'll finish off by tidying all this up when we're finished. So that's our first hook in place. Next of all, we're going to loop back up to the top and then bring that back down and round. So to do that, I want another crimp in position. And bring that round. And we're going to tuck down just inside there. There we go. Now with the shrink tube on this one, we'll finish this off last because we'll nip that nice and tight and just slide the shrink tube over the end. And we want to find where we want this one exactly. So this is going to be quite a short piece of trace. There we go, and I think that is about there. Is probably gonna do the job, to be honest. So just nip that down again. Grab your crimping tool again, and exactly the same as we did before. One really firm push on there, hold it for a few seconds, and release, and you'll see that the crimping tool has done its job. Now when we've finished that one, like we say, we'll slide one of these over the end and tidy that up. Just there, and then we'll shrink those down to size. So that's your first hook done, and as you can see, the wire is now kicked back and is going to be coming out in exactly the direction that we want it to. So the next thing we need to do is grab a piece of shrink tube. We're going to feed that on first of all just there. We're then going to grab our crimp for this last hook, slide that on first of all as well, and then we are going to place our final hook on just there. Okay. You want to feed that back through the crimp again without getting your hook tangled up. There we go. And then that's going to go back through that final piece of shrink tube and pull into place. Again, it doesn't have to be really tight on the end. I like that hook to hang freely, gives me enough room as well to pop a little pin in there to hold that in the body of the lure. Grab your crimping tool, and this is the final time you'll need it. Tight squeeze, couple of seconds, and off again. And there is the basic rig. So yep, we've got a bit of a tag end here to tidy up. If you really wanted to economise, you could cut that a few centimetres shorter initially, but I'd rather have that extra bit of wire to play with. So we'll take that off, nice and close down to that wire, nice and easy like so. Just leave a small tag end coming out of the crimp. So if anything did fail and there was a slight bit of slippage, then you're not going to lose your fish and leave a hook or a treble in it. There we go. So the last thing to do with this rig now, before we get it onto the shad itself, is to get these bits of shrink tube on. So pop the kettle on boil, hang these out of the way of your fingers, and you can do them just over the steam, or as I do, I just pour the boiling water straight onto those. It doesn't weaken the crimps in any way, and yeah, it's absolutely fine to fish. It just speeds up the process and gets them nice and tight around those crimps. So we'll get that done and we're back. Once you've popped your shrink tube on, the rig should look like this. Add a split ring onto the end so it's nice and easy to join to the corkscrew in just a moment. And if you can, grab yourself a couple of these bait pins. They're really cheap, and they just hold this in the body of the shad. If not, I do make them from other stuff myself. As you can see, paper clip, piece of floristry wire wrapped around will do exactly the same job. Once you've got your bait pins on, the rig will look like this. Attach your corkscrew to the end and it's ready to fit to your shad. I like to pop my bait pins just in next to the hooks, as I leave plenty of free space for those to move around. Grab your shad. Most corkscrews will have a single pin point, and just pop that directly in the centre of your shad. Keeping your shad nice and straight. And start to wind that in. Being careful that the hooks don't go in your hand or your arm along the way. Nice and tight just into the end there. And then this is ready to fix into your shad. So, take your bait pin and pop that into the lure's body. There you go, and that will secure your first one in position. Again, if you don't have these and you don't want your hooks free hanging, then obviously you can just bury one of the barbs in there, bury one of the hook ends. I prefer to leave mine hanging as it does give me more points to hook up on the fish. Second one, pull it back a little bit because it will slack off when the lure's in the water. Push that up into the belly as well, and there you have it. Rigged shad with a really strong, versatile rig for a fraction of the price you'd pay in the shops, probably double the quality. Now let's get out and see if we can have a fish. Oh, yep, fish on. Fish on. So, there we go. Second chuck since I've been here. Another day out on the rivers. Well, a few hours out on the rivers anyway. And straight into a gorgeous little jack that's probably been resting for way too long. When they kick off like this, just flip them over onto their belly for a moment. Onto their back, sorry, not their belly. Fish will calm down, allowing you to get a nice hold on him. Nice and firm on your hold. There we go. Gorgeous little jack. Really great condition, this one. Really clean fish. Still relatively chunky as well, which is really great to see. So we'll get this one back in. We'll flick out the big shads again and see if we can get another before we have to leave. But a brilliant start. There we go.